Greetings, everybody, and welcome to my little podcast here, Healthy Voice Notes. I'm Bella. If you haven't met me before, I'm a voice coach with, a long history of wellness practices and even a little bit of trauma training. And I help people who are sensitive find their voices. And I was just, it's early morning here and it's the writing hour for me. And I was just about to start working on chapter 3 for Singing Through the Shadows. And, writer's block, it's not writer's block though. It's resistance, really. There's this, I thought a great way to procrastinate would be to make a podcast on the topic of resistance. And so while it's fresh in my mind, perhaps I can help other people and also get myself going, which I do have the time to make a podcast and work on my chapter. So I started this series called Singing Through the Shadows last month, I think. I have 2 chapters written that are memoir-like chapters. I just feel so funny calling it a memoir because I'm not that old. It feels a little silly. But anyway, so I've recorded a lot of songs in my life. I started recording over 20 years ago. 25 years ago, I think, was the first time I went into a recording studio. I was young. I was like 17, I think, the first time I recorded a song, and it was very, very exciting and scary. I always loved the experience of going into a recording studio. It was terrifying and exciting all at once. And to be able to get a recording of your song back is just the most thrilling moment. I can think back on my life, and I think so many exciting moments happened after I got that CD back from the engineer, and it was all mixed, and all my musician friends had come in, and it usually would take months to get one track done. It's a different era now. A lot of people will do things just from their computer. They do things digitally, and they can get a song done like in a week, I guess. I don't know. I don't really record anymore. I intend to, though, and so I'm sure I'll get a taste of it. I'll understand more later. The point is that I have like 2.5 albums worth of music that I never really promoted. I never really did anything with them. The first album that I'm really proud of, the first album of recordings, I recorded when I was between the ages of, I don't know, I think 22 and 23, I guess. And I wrote the songs, though. I wrote most of the songs when I was a teenager. And these songs really got me through my adolescence. I really credit them for saving my life. And I had other friends who wrote really emotionally driven music. That was kind of my thing, and that was the thing that my friends were into. It was very cool where I lived. And so I had the encouragement of a small music community. When I say small, I mean our shows could get to be in the, I guess, several hundreds. I guess, you picture a dive bar crammed with people, and that's kind of what the shows would look like. And it was a very exciting time in my life. I felt like I was kind of living the 90s dream. It was exactly what you would fantasize about if you were a musician in that era. And it was very exciting for me. I wasn't obsessed with becoming nationally famous in any way. What I dreamed about was being able to go to different college towns, different cities with cool art scenes, and to be able to have an audience waiting for me there. I had friends who did that. I had friends who were like what we would call indie famous. And I was so inspired by them. And I hoped that I could get to that point, and I never did. The best I was ever able to do was to go to like a nearby city. And if I was lucky, maybe one or two people had heard my name before. That's it. It's not like I ever had any fans outside of my town. But anyway, it was an exciting moment, and people seemed to respond to my songs, but when I moved to LA, I had every intention of promoting these songs and trying to get them heard, but I felt there were two things that happened. I felt that I was greeted with just a totally different musical landscape. Like maybe LA was just the wrong city for me to take these songs to, because everything was like very casual, like vibey, like almost background music. I kind of felt like I would hear some of the music, and that's not true of all LA bands. There were actually some really cool LA bands coming up, having some fame at the time. I can think of Rilo Kiley is the first one I think of. Elliott Smith had already been really successful here, but those people were already established. And by the time I got to LA, a different vibe was taking hold. It was more like electronic music was becoming very, very cool. And even I loved listening to it as well, but I was always more like an acoustic Elliott Smith type of person. And I just felt like I had missed my window. But honestly, I was holding myself back. It wasn't really that I wasn't being well received. I interpreted it that way at the time, and I held on to that story as a way to avoid pushing things out of my comfort zone. The truth is, I was very intimidated by LA. I was intimidated by the overwhelming coolness of it all, being like a folk punk type of songwriter from a southern city in Florida. I mean, like, I just felt so self-conscious. I think I was still saying, I never said y'all where I grew up. I kind of resisted that, but I said you all, which I thought was more sophisticated. It's just like so funny because when I came here, all anybody heard was y'all, and it would get pointed out to me all the time. And some of my friends here would point out the way I spoke, I never really had a heavy Southern accent, but they would point out certain things that I said differently, and it made me feel very self-conscious. And I felt like, I don't think I'm cool enough here. I don't think that I'm going to really be able to make an impact. And so I just kind of gave up. The truth is I was also in a pretty bad relationship, which was holding me back, and I couldn't find a way out of it, which was also hindering my confidence. So now here we are, 2 decades later, and I'm talking to the world about finding your voice and being yourself and sharing your art. And as I started to get a lot of people actually listening to me, actually booking sessions with me, I value people's time and money, and people are paying me money and spending their time to hear what I have to say about unique and authentic expression. And so I was starting to think back to these recordings that I had that meant a lot to me. I was very proud of them. And my friends who played on the recordings with me, they did it out of their love and belief for me. The recording engineer did it as a huge favor to me. I can't even remember if I paid him. I don't know if I did. I mean, that's the kind of community I had back then. And my fear got in the way. And I had been thinking about this as people started subscribing to my YouTube channel, The Healthy Voice, and people were starting to join my community. And I thought, I need to bring these songs back, and I need to share my story, because I think it will be helpful to somebody. And if anything, I'll do myself a favor from that, my young adult self, my teenage self. I will do her a favor of sharing her songs with the world. And so I released 2 songs, 2 chapters, and each chapter is inspired by one of the songs from that era. And I share a little bit about my story about being an adolescent, an older adolescent with a lot of emotional problems and the high pressure I was dealing with at my high school, which I loved very much, but it was a very high intensity environment, very competitive, and this very strong need to be heard and this very strong need to be seen as this creative and unique individual. I think that they were, I felt that they were received pretty well, but what I noticed is that after I published my second chapter, I started to get very, like, scared, and I stopped working on it, and so it's been a few weeks, I think, since I released that second song. I have the third chapter's song video done. The guy who's doing it, he's been really efficient. He's been getting them done quickly for me. And so the holding back has been on my part. I have been the one afraid to write the third chapter and share it because a lot of my self-sabotage thinking has come up where I've thought to myself, oh man, what are you doing? Nobody wants to hear this. Like, this is so embarrassing. Do you really want to share this, like, hard time you went through? Do you really want people to hear these songs you wrote a long time ago? Like, what if they're not relevant? But then I wanted to share with you, and I'm sharing this because I think some of you probably need to hear it because you've probably dealt with your own self-sabotage thinking when it comes to your art. So I was looking at my Substack statistics, and, Substack is a challenging platform. I don't know what it is. Something about the algorithm is not like YouTube, where I just don't know. It's hard to get a following on Substack. So with me, I have over 300 followers. That's good on Substack. Like, that's impressive. A lot of people, you start and it's just crickets over there. So I was looking at all of my stats, and my views have gotten improved a lot since I started less than a year ago. But the ones that are doing the best are my 2 chapters of Singing Through the Shadows. I was looking at that. I was looking at chapter 2, and I was seeing the views are at 490 views, and I got 6 subscribers just from that post. And that made me stop and talk to myself about this resistance. I talk a lot about the war of art and this thing called resistance, and how your job as an artist is to show up, do your work, and share it with the world. And every single step along the way is going to have resistance. And so for me, a lot of that resistance looks like very insecure feelings of nobody wants to hear your story. It's depressing. It's embarrassing. These are the thoughts that go through my head. But part of the reason I'm doing what I'm doing is because that girl who wrote the songs that I'm posting in Singing Through the Shadows, she desperately needed somebody like the person I am today to guide her through her process, to say to her, look, you have a voice that wants to be heard. You work at your voice. You work at writing your songs. You go through all this effort to share your music, and people actually respond to it. Yet you're so focused on the naysayers, the people who look at you with the side eye, the people who put you down. You're so focused on them. And those voices, those critical voices, are creating something in you called the silencer. And the silencer is that negative, critical voice that wants you to just shut up and don't make your art, don't share your art with people because it's embarrassing. And you need to tell that silencer to get out of your way and just do it. And so I'm going to start working on chapter 3 today. I already have it started, and I'm going to hopefully finish it by the end of the weekend so that I can post chapter 3 next week. And chapter 3 is called That's Not Your Life. It's a song I wrote about how I grew up feeling like an alien, basically. I kind of felt like I credited moving a lot, but I don't think that's all it was. I think that even if I had stayed in one location, I think I would have still felt like an alien. I just always felt very different. And even though people liked me, it was very hard for me to maintain best friends. Like I had a lot of friends. I was popular at school, but I couldn't really maintain best friendship friends. And I figured a lot of it was because I was just such a goofball. And I remember at some point in every single friendship I ever developed, at some point the friend would look at me and go, "You're so weird." And they'd say it with a smile, like they weren't trying to be mean, but they thought it. They thought I was weird, and they just felt like they wanted to tell me. And I would laugh it off, and at some point I just started going, "I know," and I would kinda laugh it off too, because to be honest, I knew I was a little different because what I was doing was I was actively holding on to my childlike nature. I was aware that everybody was growing up and everybody was becoming jaded. That is what I noticed in my teenage years, is that the older everyone got, the more jaded and pessimistic and just boring they got. I thought they were boring, and I didn't want to be boring. I actually had like a deep love for life and a spark in me that I was trying so hard to keep alive. And so I accepted that I was considered a little weird by people who seemed to like me, but I decided that I was going to kind of guard myself in order to protect that little sparkle that they translated as weird, but to me was just me refusing to grow up all the way. Yeah, I was mature. I had a job. I could pay my bills. Like I paid bills as a teenager. I actually did. And I took care of myself, I had a lot of my own responsibilities, but all along the way, I wanted to maintain this sparkle because to me it was what made life interesting. And of course, as I got older, into real adulthood, it became nearly impossible to maintain this spark. I credit working with children as helping me to maintain that spark up until this age. But even throughout the last 20 years of my life as a music teacher, it has come with many, many challenges and many phases where I have just deadened my spark. Thank God I've been able to go through recovery periods. And now I'm at this point where I feel like I'm fully recovered. There are still moments where I get challenged, but I feel like I feel like I'm recovered, and I'm at this point now where I think that young girl who was trying to hold on to her spark, I think she was right. I doubted that for a long time. I often wondered if I was wrong for trying to hold on to that sparkle. It's not a good feeling when people look at you like they like you, but they also think you're weird. It's not a good feeling. You can laugh it off all you want, but it just doesn't feel good. But now, thank God, I'm at this point where I'm old enough to be able to look back and say, it was very smart of her to do that. And I've tried to pass that on to my young students. And I hope that I hope that they'll be able to hold on to that sparkle, that thing that makes being young so special. I hope that they'll be able to do that. And I hope that I can help grown-ups reclaim it. And that's what I'm doing here with the voice work, because I do think that a lot of it is in the voice. If you can heal the thing that is blocking your voice, or the things that are blocking your voice, you can get that creative spark back, or you can get it to be stronger than it is right now. And you can start sharing that, whatever it is about you that makes you unique, whatever it was about you when you were a child that made you special, the thing that people liked about you as a child, that thing is still there, you know? For me, it was being a goofball. Everybody loved me for it. They loved it. I made everybody laugh. I made everyone feel good. And, the way it works, especially in female friendships, is the closer you get, the more honest you become. And so my friends weren't trying to hurt my feelings when they said, "You're so weird." They were just so comfortable with me at that point that they were able to say the thing that everybody was thinking. And for me at the time, I tried my hardest to take it in a way that didn't hold me back. But after a while, after hearing it several times, it started to hold me back. But, I'm not saying I was held back from it. I was a little bit, but every single time I would recognize that I was falling back into a state of boringness that I did not want to be in. And so I would be able to find my way back to, recover from that, and I'd be able to get it back for a little while. Now here I am. I think I've done that recovery process enough times where now I'm putting it all into a package, and I'm doing it. I'm helping people with one-on-one sessions, and through my YouTube channel, and through Singing Through the Shadows, which I'm sure some of you guys are reading it and listening to it, and I thank you very much, because when I see those numbers, when I see that those numbers are higher, it makes me realize, oh, I need to do this. This is obviously reaching somebody. So I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to work on chapter 3. So I'll put a link to the main page for Singing Through the Shadows if you want to subscribe to my Substack, so you can get it when it comes out. And don't forget to check out the Voice Liberation course. It's all about reclaiming your voice and going through the hero's journey to discover what is holding back your spark. What is it? Because we're all meant to be creative people. There's no such thing as some people are creative and others are not. Everybody is creative. Your body was designed to create life. Everybody, man, woman, we were all designed to create life. I can think of nothing more creative than the ability to make life. So if your body was designed to create life, then you were also designed to create other things. And so whatever it is in you that you desire to make, you have to make it. And if you're stuck, I'm here to help. So, all right, I'll talk to you guys in the next one. I hope you have a great weekend. Sorry, not weekend. I'm recording this on a Friday, but I'm going to probably post it on Monday, because I have another one coming out tomorrow. I don't want to overwhelm your inbox too much. All right, you guys, have a great week.